Now that the Spurs have proven to be the best of the best, what's left for the rest? Will the big three stay intact? Will Melo find a home? And will the Bucks ever become relevant? We'll talk about that next on Sidelines.
Well, I mean, the decision comes down to me and my family at the end of the day. That's going to be the number one priority as my family, and if my family is happy, then I'm happy. I'm able to perform at a high level, so, my family plays a huge part in it. But like I said, I haven't even began to even have those conversations with my family or with my agent. With my team or anybody, at this point, they've kind of just been leaving me alone. They know how I am after a loss.
In 2011.
Hi again, everyone, and welcome to Sidelines. I'm Mike Lucas from UWBadgers.com. I'm joined by Andy Baggett, Tom Oates from the Wisconsin State Journal, and Jeff Petrikis from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. The opt-out deadline is June 29th. So what do you think will happen, if anything, in Miami with the big three, whether it be LeBron James, D. Wade, or Chris Bosh? Oatsy?
I think LeBron James will look around. I don't know that he's going to find a better place to win a championship than where he is right now. It depends. I think there's probably some behind-the-scenes discussions of the Heat, Pat Riley telling LeBron what they plan to do, because that team obviously needs a little more help. The Spurs restocked around their big three a lot better than the Heat did around theirs. So the team obviously needs some help. I'm sure you'll listen to what their plans are.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I think he would like to stay in Miami, but if Bosh and Wade decide they choose money more than helping the team rebuild with their decisions on their contracts, that team is not going to win a championship next year. And I think that if those three can't agree, which I think they probably will be able to, if they can't agree, then that really hurts LeBron's chances.
But don't you think there is a bond between LeBron and Wade, not so much with Bosh? So if Bosh does decide to leave, and there are people out there who would like to add Bosh, including Dallas, that then the Heat could retool with Bosh out of the picture, and that would keep LeBron happy?
I think they should get Wade out of the picture.
It's possible, but I think you have to look at Dwayne Wade and where he is in his career. And he's just not the player he used to be.
Does he have to think about surgery or retiring?
You look at, say, compare him to Ray Allen. Ray Allen has great skills. Wade did not have great skills. A lot of his game was predicated on his explosiveness, his jumping ability, and his speed and all that kind of stuff. Well, as that has left him, mainly due to knee injuries, not even age, he's become a fairly ordinary player. I mean, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he's fallen back into the ranks of good, not great. And I think the future of that franchise depends on what they want to do with Dwayne Wade, really.
If LeBron wants to leave and decides to go, who knows, Knicks, who cares? I mean, wherever he would want to go. What's wrong with him doing that? What's the big issue?
I don't have a problem with it.
The concept of him chasing championships.
I think
he's the best player in the NBA, and I've heard people complain.
He would be viewed that way.
He would be viewed in a way as a mercenary, a guy who's just going to go to a place
that he needed others to win.
Is going to follow him, but that's going to follow him.
I mean, Kobe needed Shaq, Michael needed Scotty, and others.
I think the timing and juxtaposition would be bad for him in that regard.
Coming off a loss in the finals?
Well, no, coming off losing to the team that had its main guy be with the same team for 17 years, and even though he needed other guys around him as his skills declined, he stayed at the same place for 17. I'm talking Tim Duncan. So I think people would make that comparison, then say, oh, you're going shop for a championship. What about the guy? Why don't you show some loyalty? Because they would say, this is the second time you didn't show your loyalty. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying people would perceive it that way.
Somewhere in the back of my mind, I've always thought that Shaq and the Lakers LeBron and the Lakers were on a collision course at some point in his career that he would end up in LA. And, I don't know. I don't know anything about that, if there's even any interest, but that seems to be where players like LeBron end up. And that's not a very good team right now. So if he's going to look around, he might look at a Cleveland or a Chicago and say there's
he's got a better point guard in
there's a
Cleveland.
much better ability to win there than there is in L.A.
The variable in the mix is Carmelo. Is it not? A little bit? I mean, if Bosch decides to go elsewhere, Miami then would have room to bring on Carmelo Anthony.
Well, if you believe the reports, Miami isn't even in the mix for him right now, in Anthony's mind.
Well, I don't know that he's going to leave New York, to be honest, as well.
Carmelo Anthony isn't as highly regarded, I don't think, around the league as he maybe is among fandom who look at his scoring average, because when's he ever won? At least since he got to the NBA. I think.
And can you play with him and win? That's another question.
Can you play with him and win? He's not a winning basketball player. He puts up hollow numbers. He puts up great numbers. He's a great talent. I had great hopes for him because I thought when he was a freshman at Syracuse that he was an outstanding winning basketball player. And when he got to the NBA, he became a me-first basketball player.
Doesn't Carmelo Anthony represent the antithesis of what the Spurs have become and are and have been?
Yeah, if you're talking diametric
Popovich
opposites,
and Duncan and just that mesh.
No question, but didn't the Spurs, it wasn't just about their talent, it was about their willingness to look at what they were doing and saying, we need to change, we need to do something different, we need to making Tim Duncan the
Kawhi
focus.
Leonard was the difference
Making
this
Tim
year.
Duncan the focus.
Patty Mills.
Patty Mills,
started
but
to change
Leonard,
that.
I mean, the MVP of the finals made a huge difference in how they approach certain things, don't you agree? And what they could do in matchups?
Love Kawhi Leonard. He helped. He's a terrific player on both ends of the floor. But let's get something straight here. Kawhi Leonard was operating as the fourth option. It's a lot easier to operate as the fourth option than it is when you're the number 1 or 2 option of a team.
As we break for this timeout, you're watching Sidelines. Is there a Kawhi Leonard for the Milwaukee Bucks?
Well, I hope there's a better player than Kawhi Leonard. No offense to Kawhi Leonard.
You think they could get a better player than
No,
Leonard?
when you draft.
He had more power than I think anybody understood. He just decided to use it when he wanted to. But just a great hitter, just very, very difficult to pitch against when you have that kind of hand-eye coordination, that kind of bat speed, and that kind of approach. And he made a great mark on this game.
Tony Gwynn, Hall of Famer. What is his legacy, to your thinking, from afar, watching him, hearing about the way his handling of people?
He was the first ballot Hall of Famer. He was beloved by his teammates. He was the kind of teammate that you would want to have regardless. He had no enemies around baseball, but you can say without hesitation that he was a better human being than he was a baseball player. And that's the ultimate compliment. People are talking more
Everybody
about the
will
type
vouch
of,
for it.
People are talking more about his accomplishments as a human being and how he related to
And he was
people
one of the
than what he
greatest
did.
hitters of all time, right?
There's no question. The best thing I read was something by Greg Maddux, who was talking about how he always believed that the human eye can't tell how fast something is coming at it, and that allowed him to really mess with hitters' timing and stuff. And he ended it off by saying, well, pretty much everybody except Tony Gwynn, okay? He's the one guy who was the exception to all of his theories, that he just could never fool Tony Gwynn. Greg Maddux never struck out Tony Gwynn in his career.
He hit 417 against Tony Gwynn.
I was going to say, those
against
are
Greg Maddux.
two numbers that stand out. That one, and I think I saw this where someone figured out that he would have had to have gone 0 for the next 1,180 at bats, and he'd still be a career 300 hitter. I mean, think about that. That's amazing.
Oh, the one thing everybody has to think about today is the other half of this story regarding smokeless tobacco. Do you think Major League Baseball has to ban smokeless tobacco in its clubhouses? Yes or no?
It's not like this is a new thing. It's been out there for a long time. Major League Baseball knows that this is an issue, but it's also a cultural issue. Guys have been doing this for a long time. They've started in the lower levels. There's been a campaign to make kids aware that this is not the way to go, that this is something that they don't want to do. They've banned beer in the clubhouses in a lot of places, and I think that
it's legal to do both. That's a distinction that has to be made.
But we also have to say that even though Tony Gwynn suspects that his cancer came from smokeless tobacco, he was not sure about that, and there was no verification of that. So I think Major League Baseball, I would do it. I would do it if I were Bud Selig.
I think there's enough horror stories out there of former ball players who had serious problems and ended up with disfigured faces or worse, lost their lives. And I don't see any reason. I don't know why it's still allowed, to be honest with you.
At the very least, work with the players. The Players Association say, look, let's work together on this. It's for the benefit of your people, your union members, and it's for the benefit of the game.
And plus, there's always, with any professional sport, there's the overriding thing of what kind of message are you sending to youth, because youth idolize these, for better or for worse, youth idolize these players and emulate them.
What's the poignant story in this is Tony Gwynn's son. The reason he didn't smoke is he picked up his dad's glass of spit at one point in time and took a drink of it. And
Didn't taste so good, did it?
Well, I'm just saying, but that's how he figured out this is. Why would I do this?
And Gwynn was
so there
addicted to the extent that when he got up in the morning, he'd put in a
He
chew.
couldn't, yeah. And
It
it's
wasn't
an
just playing
addiction.
baseball.
No.
You have to send a message somehow, some way.
Yeah, and if Major League Baseball and the Players Association, if they can't agree on this, if they can't come together on this and do something good, there's no hope.
Now, on a much lighter side, Wisconsin, Fox Sports Wisconsin has sent out a message on all-star voting, a kind of clever little promo for Jonathan Lucroy that Mike Matheny, who we heard from at the top of this segment, didn't really care for, kind of spoofing the Cardinals and their holier-than-thou image. Did you have any problem with that as trying to get Lucroy into the all-star game, even at the expense of Molina?
It was directed at Brewer fans. It wasn't directed at Major League Baseball people. It was directed. I didn't take it as a slight to the Cardinals as much as I took it as a
was a
clever
satire.
way. It was a little bit, and I can understand why the Cardinals would get bent out of shape, because they get bent out of shape about everything that's perceived as a slight. But in this case, I thought it was a clever way of highlighting Jonathan Lucroy. For those who haven't looked at his numbers, who haven't looked at his impact on this team, which would be stunning at this point in time, he's one of the best catchers in baseball, just as Yadier Molina is, and he should be part of any type of a discussion.
It was tongue-in-cheek. Okay, but here's the problem with baseball, and it's old school. Oh, we were slighted rules, okay? Tongue-in-cheek doesn't work in baseball. So you can take a bunch of Neanderthals like what you have in the Cardinals clubhouse, and they can make a mountain out of a molehill here.
I think it would have been, you would have had less of a reaction had it been anybody but the Brewers and the Cardinals. If it would have been the Brewers and,
Oh, the Diamondbacks? They get along?
Just a team, there's obviously a tension between the two clubs for a number of reasons. And plus, and you have the Cardinals with that attitude where they believe that they are the guardians of the game. And anyone who questions that is viewed as the enemy.
Well, the Cardinals are where the Brewers want to get, aren't they? I mean, they've won world championships, and
Yes.
they're a consistent
They're the
contender.
big brother. They're the big brother of that division, and they act like the big brother of that division. They're going to give the noogies every now and again, and they're not going to hesitate to smack the little brother around. The Brewers are the team that wants to get Big Brother's attention and knock him off sometime, and to me, I like that. I like the rivalry. I really do.
competitive.
And this just adds to it.
Well, you mentioned Neanderthal. Did you have Kirk Gibson in mind?
Yeah, I really, to me, that episode in Arizona is the funniest thing in the world.
They threw it Ryan Braun.
They threw it Ryan Braun, and the pitcher couldn't even hit Ryan Braun. So then he goes up next pitch, and up says, I'm going to throw you out if you do it. So he hits him, puts him on, and then first pitch, Lucroy hits a home run.
That's how you answer.
The
don't
only
you?
thing
Yes,
is, I
absolutely.
wish Lucroy had gone around the bases doing the Kirk Gibson fist pump from the World Series
Well,
home
it's so
runs.
telling when Gibson is fist bumping his pitcher,
An
who he had ordered to
enthusiastic
throw
fist
at
bump.
Braun.
And the pitcher's in a bad, the pitcher, no matter what the ump says when he comes out and says, I'm going to toss you,
Oh,
the pitcher should just say to him,
absolutely.
I don't care because my boss is going to send me to the minors if
We
I don't
need
throw
to
at
take
this
a
guy.
break here. You're watching Sidelines.
The funniest part was him fist bumping like that, because normally they try and deny it. If there was actual physical evidence,
yes, I
that
have
he
more
was all
respect for
fired up
that.
about it.
His boss now is Tony La Russa, noted headhunter.
Yeah.
They're going to La Russa's going to fire that whole staff anyways. They're all gone. They're history.
I'm very comfortable. I'm very comfortable. If something has to be said, I'm going to say it. And if somebody has a problem with it, then we're grown men. We play a violent game. We get paid to be violent, so why not? If you deck somebody in the locker room because you have disagreement, there's not going to be any sensitivity training. There's not going to be any, it's a barbaric sport, so that's how you're going to have to approach it. I'm tired of getting our face punched in by other teams. I'm not used to that.
That would be Green Bay's Mike Daniels. You were just off camera a little bit, huh, Otzi?
I was participating in that interview, yes.
So what did you make out of his statements?
He's a bit of a loose cannon who occasionally overstates things, but he's a very passionate guy, and I think will be his third year. He was drafted as a situational player, but I think he's become a pretty vital member of their defense, and he's got a voice, and he's going to be heard. And
Do you buy into what he's saying?
I buy into what he's saying. I think what happens is these guys sit and they watch, or they play a team like Seattle or San Francisco, or they watch them late in the playoffs, and their defenses are just physically beating up opponents, and they go, we don't do that. And I don't think the Packers are a soft team by any stretch of the imagination, but those teams are overly physical, and that's where I think he's talking about taking the step from being just a normal physical football team to being an overly physical football team. That's what he's talking about.
Didn't we heard this, not from Mike Daniels, but before last season, about having the defense being tougher, and how did it manifest itself against the 49ers? Clay Matthews clotheslining the quarterback, Kaepernick, out of bounds, basically. That's not how you be tough. It starts with an attitude. It starts every day. It starts with beating the living daylights out of the guy in front of you on the line of scrimmage. That's where it starts. And if he wants to talk about it, and if he wants to be a leader, more power to him.
Well, Clay Matthews, is he viewed as a tough guy? Not necessarily.
Well,
but he's one of the better players on that defense.
Who would you say who defines toughness?
Well, that's what it comes down to.
On that defense, who defines who should be the leader in the persona that they want to put forth? Is there anybody even there who does that?
Toughness is a state of mind too, isn't it? It's being there all the time.
You know, and part of it is just how hard you hit, and part of that's due to is a factor of speed. They've not been a very fast defense, particularly in the front seven, except for maybe Clay Matthews. And, you know, they need speed as much as they need meanness or toughness or whatever. There's your clothesline.
but you also
Jeff.
need guys willing, once they get there, to use that speed and then nail somebody, and not just push them out of bounds or not just bring them down gently. Hit them hard, legally, cleanly.
Cleanly. That would be the operative
absolutely.
word. To me, that secondary's soft. And if you just look at the way they tackle or don't, isn't that part of being tough, the way you tackle? And
Well, the one
field?
thing the 49ers and Seahawks have done, I think, to change the game of football is they've reinvented the safety position, and they've put very physical people back there.
Very
physical, versatile safeties who can cover, who can hit. Now, those guys are hard to find, but if you want to know what I think makes those defenses really different, it's probably in that they've put some of the neglected positions in the NFL have been inside linebacker and safety, and they've put really good players, really good hitters in those positions.
I would suggest the Packers have redefined safety play. No interceptions out of the position for an entire season. Who can match that? Not many teams.
Now, four of us. We can match that.
Very easily. All right, this week some more news out of Washington, or affecting the Washington Redskins. U.S. Patent Office has canceled some of the trademarks. Is this a potential tipping point in terms of changing that nickname and getting rid of it, or not? Is this going to be just delayed in the courts, Andy?
It's definitely a tipping point, because
Why is that?
two of the more prominent people in all of sports, Daniel Snyder, the owner of the Redskins, and Commissioner Roger Goodell, have been put in. They're backed into a corner in my mind. They have to do something. And Daniel Snyder can stand up and say, "I'm not changing it. I'm going to do this." He has said that. He has said that, but he has politicians lining up against him. He has a very emotional fan base that's getting caught up in this. It's a distraction to the point he cannot do. I don't think they can move forward as an organization until they address this.
Well, I agree 100% with the sentiment behind this. When did the U.S. Patent Office become the arbiter of what's right and wrong in America? This is just some political ploy that they figured out that maybe they could force this issue.
But it could hurt him if it hurts
Here's
any
what'll
owner
hurt
in the
him.
pocketbook.
If people stop going to games or start protesting outside or stop watching the Redskins.
First of all, once they appeal, as long as the case is under appeal, it won't hurt him in the pocketbook.
Correct.
So he won't be losing any money. He is not going to just say, well, Patent Office, you're right. I've been wrong all this time. I'm not going to fight it. He's going to fight it as long as he can in the courts, and that's going to take years. We're going to all be retired
Does the
before this.
NFL have to take action on this?
They haven't.
You
to
know
this
their
point.
stance?
The only way the NFL, I'll liken this to Sterling in the NBA. The NFL won't
need
do
to take
anything
another break. You're
until it
watching
affects them
Sidelines.
monetarily. and it's not going
What
to
is
affect them
bad for
monetarily.
business? That's the
Well,
phrase.
It
When
hasn't
becomes
been
bad
yet.
for
Yeah, it
business.
hasn't been bad for business yet.
They're not gonna-
You can watch a podcast version of our show by going to channel3000.com. Or if you have a question for us, go to Sidelines at channel3000.com or Sidelines on Facebook. And if it's a good question, you've got a chance to win a $25 gift certificate to Christie's Landing on the beautiful shores of Lake Long Beach. So go to Christie's. You will enjoy it. Christie's Landing. This week's question, very timely. Will you watch more World Cup soccer since Team USA has won its first game? Were you aware that Team USA, they beat Ghana? No. Okay. I want to make that clear, first of all. And now they play
I watched
Portugal.
the USA beat Ghana, but I don't think I'll be watching Bulgaria, hoping to scout the UW's or the USA's first game in the knockout round.
They play Portugal on Sunday. Okay?
Well, I know, but what am I going to watch Portugal? They need me to send them a scouting report or something?
So what is your answer to this? Are you going to watch or not?
No.
I watch the USA.
Nationalism.
period.
That's
End of
okay.
story.
How about
Why
you?
wouldn't you? Why would you not?
I
it's-
watched the soccer.
I
one
sat there
game.
and watched the first game, and they score in the first 30 seconds, and they didn't
How can you beat
score.
that?
You can't beat that, and then you think it's going to be this wide open affair, and there's no goals until the 83rd, and the next goes in the 83rd.
Ratings were
minute, so-
decent, weren't they?
Yeah.
I don't know nothing against soccer, nothing against the World
Sure you
Cup,
do.
but I haven't watched a second, and I
Why is that?
probably I just have had other things to do.
I watched it in a sports
You're on
bar.
vacation. What else do you have to do?
Did you watch it in a
Actually,
sports bar?
spending time with my wife has been a
Okay,
good start.
okay.
I watched it in a sports
That had to
bar.
be
It was
fun.
purely a research mission to,
Of course.
see
were assigned.
how fans
You were
were
assigned.
reacting to the World Cup.
It's a tough job.
And
Someone has to do it.
When the U.S. scored on a header in the closing minutes of the game,
86.
the place erupted. I mean, it was like the Brewers in the
That's a big
playoffs
part
and a
of the
game-winning hit.
attraction.
The place erupted, and there were a lot of people there watching, and the whole place cheered. I mean, it was
Johnny
crazy.
Brooks, Johnny
I've
Brooks.
not seen that for soccer.